Welcome. My name is Marco Mendoza, and I serve as Assistant Director of Client Services here in the Office of Financial Aid at Cal State Fullerton. It is our pleasure to be here today to support you all as you complete your California Dream Act and FAFSA applications for the 2022-2023 application year. And throughout this presentation, we're going to be going over a lot of information that will be useful and very beneficial as you fill out your application with step-by-step instructions and so forth. But before we start, we want to let you know that the Office of Financial Aid is here to serve you. And if you have any additional questions after this presentation, you are more than welcome to reach out to us and we can support you with completing your application and also support you with answering other questions that you may have unrelated to the application, but perhaps more specific to your individual needs. So please let us know how we can support you. We are here to guide you through your entire academic journey and support you to graduation. And before we get started, I want to give you a quick overview. So we're going to be going over why and where you can apply for financial aid, as well as step-by-step instructions on how to complete your California Dream Act, your CDA or FAFSA applications, as well as other important information that you will need to know. But before we get started, I do want to go over a few terms that we will be using throughout this presentation. These are very common terms in our office, but we understand that they may not be so common for all of our students or our prospective students. So first and foremost, CDA. The CDA for us stands for the California Dream Act application. Next is FAFSA. FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Next, COA, which stands for the Cost of Attendance. And next we have EFC, which stands for Expected Family Contribution. And lastly, FWS, which stands for Federal Work Study. Now, why do you need to apply for financial aid? Before we can do anything here at CSUF in the Office of Financial Aid, before we can award students, the first thing we need all students to do is to submit either a California Dream Act or a FAFSA application. Not both, just whichever you are specifically eligible to submit. And the application will always open up on October 1st. And we want students to submit your application by March 2nd of 2023. After students submit their applications, we are at times asked to request additional documentation to verify your financial aid eligibility. Now, this isn't us trying to just request tax documents for the sake of it, but really to verify what we can do to maximize your dollars, maximize your grant dollars here as a student. After you have completed both your California Dream Act application or the FAFSA, and you have submitted any documents that have been requested of you, which we will be requesting via your student center, your student homepage, we can then go ahead and award you financial aid for the upcoming academic year. Now, why do you need to apply? Once again, it's really important to apply because we do so based off of something we call priority. Now, here at CSUF, we award you based off of whether you are a Priority 1 student or a Priority 2 student. To be considered a Priority 1 student, you must submit your California Dream Act, your CDA, or your FAFSA by March 2nd of 2023. If you are a Priority 1 applicant, you are also someone who submitted your documents by the priority deadline in April of 2023. Now, that specific deadline will be announced as we get closer to April, but it's typically towards the end of April. And if you're a Priority 2 applicant, that means you're someone who submitted your CDA after the March 2nd, or CDA or FAFSA after the March 2nd, 2023 priority deadline, or you are a student who perhaps submitted their documents, their financial aid verification documents after the April priority deadline. So you want to be considered a Priority 1 applicant because that will allow us to maximize your grant dollars. Now, which applications should students be submitting? We are going over two applications throughout this workshop, but it doesn't mean we want you to submit both. We only want you to submit one application, and that is whichever one you are specifically eligible to submit. If you are a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, if you have a valid social security number or a valid high school diploma or GED, you should be submitting the FAFSA application. But if you live in California and meet AB 540 eligibility requirements, you have a U visa or TPS status, you should be submitting the California Dream Act application, the CDA. Now, if you are unfamiliar with what AB 540 stands for, in short, it is a California law that was signed into effect a number of years ago that allowed students who previously were not eligible to pay in-state tuition fees to now be eligible to do so. And with the passage of the California Dream Act in this state, Students were then eligible who met those requirements to be considered for state forms of financial aid. So if you are wondering what those specific requirements are for AB 540, you'll find them listed on both our website, our CSUF Office of Financial Aid website, as well as the California Dream Act website, which we will list in just a few moments. If you are a FAFSA applicant, these are the various forms of financial aid that you could potentially qualify for. And before I get started on our list here, I want to note that here at CSUF, we award millions of dollars worth of grant and loan funding each year, but it's only possible if you as students are submitting your application. So as a FAFSA applicant, please know that you are eligible to receive both federal and state forms of grant funding, as well as federal forms of loan funding. Under the federal grants, we are able to offer students things like the grants like the Pell Grant, Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, Teach Grant, and Federal Work Study. Under the state forms of financial aid, we're eligible or able to offer students and award students things like the Cal Grant, State University Grant, the Middle Class Scholarship, and so on and so forth. Under the federal forms of loans, we're able to offer students federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans, as well as federal plus loans like the Parent Plus or the Graduate Plus loans, as well as alternative loans. But we do encourage students to exhaust their federal loan options first because they tend to have more favorable terms for our students as opposed to private loans that might have perhaps a higher interest rate or just repayment periods and terms that aren't as favorable as the federal ones. And lastly, we encourage all of our students to apply for scholarships both through CSU, the CSU, CSUF, as well as through outside scholarship organizations that are typically awarding students for a number of different majors, degree programs, and so forth. Now, if you are a FAFSA applicant, you can potentially be considered for federal work study, and we encourage you to go onto the CSUF Human Resources website and click on the student employment option so that you can view the various work study opportunities here at CSUF, working for departments ranging from campus tours to our Office of Financial Aid and anything in between. So we encourage you to answer yes on the question on the FAFSA that asks you if you want to be considered for federal work study, and to then, if you have been awarded federal work study, to go on the careers website so you can view the various student employment opportunities. Now, if you are a California Dream Act applicant, these are the various forms of financially that you could potentially qualify for. As I mentioned earlier, California Dream Act applicants or CDA applicants are eligible for state forms of financial aid like the Cal Grant, the State University Grant, as well as the Middle Class Scholarship, all of which can go towards paying your tuition and your tuition fees here at CSUF. But please keep in mind that students cannot receive all three of those specific forms of grant funding, just one, whichever one they're specifically eligible to receive. And there are other grant opportunities available, like the Chafee Grant for former foster students, as well as the California Dream Act Service Incentive Grant, which encourages Cal Grant B recipients to perform service and community hours and apply for a grant that can go to you as a student here at CSUF. Additionally, if you're a CDA applicant, you can apply for the Dream Loan or even the alternative loan, different alternative loans, which means these are private loans through other lenders, other outside lenders, outside lending institutions. But we encourage you to do some research because they might require you to have a cosigner or have specific requirements to apply. And lastly, just like our CDA, our Dream Act applicants, we encourage all of our CDA applicants to apply for scholarships through both your CSUF student portal, through the CSU as a whole, and outside organizations that are typically awarding our students. And these are the websites. We want to get started on this application with you all today. So if you haven't started already, please go on the dream.csac.ca.gov website listed here, or scan the QR code to log on to the Dream Act website if you are a Dream Act eligible student. And if you're a FAFSA eligible student, please log on to studentaid.gov or scan the QR code that you see listed on here, and we can get started on the application together. And once again, we want to remind all of our students, all of you in attendance, that March 2nd is our priority deadline. So although the application opens up in October, we want you all to submit your application by March 2nd to be maximizing your grant opportunities. And before we do get started with the application, with the screenshots and step-by-step instructions, we want to take a moment to answer some of our more frequently asked questions, starting with, do I start a new application or do I renew my application? And we want to let you know that if you are a first-time applicant, you should be starting a new application. But if you have submitted an application in the past, this is not your first application, you should click on the option for a returning applicant, which means that you are renewing your application. Next, which documents will I be asked to provide on the 2023-2024 application for either the DREAM Act or the FAFSA? You will be asked to provide 2021 federal tax return information. So this means the Form 1040 for the year 2021. And next, how do I apply for federal work study? We went over it just a few moments ago, but we want to make sure that we reiterate that if you want to be considered for federal work study, to please answer yes on the question on the application that asks if you want to be considered for it. And now, if you have typed in those URLs, those websites, uh, this is what they'll look like. On one hand, you have the California DREAM Act application with the option once again to select new user or returning user. And on the FAFSA application, the free application for federal student aid, you'll have the option to either click on new applicant or a returning applicant, a returning user. If you are clicking that you are a new applicant, for example, you will be asked to create an FSA ID. If this is not your first time, you can type in your FSA ID, which is your username, and as well as your password that you've previously created. But if you have not created an FSA ID in the past for our FAFSA applicants, you can go ahead and create an FSA ID here. And for our DREAM Act applicants, you're going to be asked a series of questions that are going to help determine whether or not you should be submitting the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application, or if you're just not eligible to submit either. So for our DREAM Act applicants specifically, uh, one of those questions that you'll be asked to help determine whether you should be submitting the CDA is, do you have a social security number? And depending on how you answer these questions, you're going to be shown two different screens. So if you answer yes, you'll be asked the question here that says, did you obtain your social security through the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, otherwise known as DACA? Um, so please read and answer accordingly. And if you answer no to the question of do you have a social security number, you'll be asked if you meet the AB 540 eligibility criteria, which is listed on here for you all. And you'll see it on the website as well as on our website if you'd like to check that out. So please answer as best as you can and as truthfully as you can. And once again, if you are a FAFSA applicant and you've never created an FSA ID, you'll be asked to do so. And this is what those screens will look like for you. So you'll be asked to provide your name, your date of birth, your social security information, and then you can go ahead and create your FSA ID, which is again your username and your password. And once you've done all that, you've created your FSA ID, you've created your username and your password for the California DREAM Act application, you can finally start to fill out the information for the student demographic information, which is the first piece of the application process. So here, you'll be asked to include your first name, your last name, your date of birth, social security number, and so on and so forth. So this is what both applications will look like for our students. On one hand, we have a FAFSA application, which once again, you'll include your address, your name, date of birth, and so on. And the same goes for our California DREAM Act applicants. And we want to point out that for both of our students, you will see the option to have hints provided to you on the side of each application by clicking on the question circles on the FAFSA application. You'll be able to see some hints. And for our DREAM Act applicants, we encourage you to click on this little auto hint section here to make sure that you do see hints on the right-hand side or on the bottom of the page for our DREAM Act applicants. This will also help guide you through the application process. After you have provided your student demographic information, you can go ahead and continue on to the school selection part of the application. And here, you'll be asked to indicate which school you want to send this information to and which schools you plan on either applying to or attending. And Because we are Cal State Fullerton, we want you to indicate CSUF as a school of attendance. So if you don't include us as a school of attendance on either the DREAM Act or the FAFSA, we will never receive your application information. So please be sure to type in 001137. This is our federal school code that you can apply and type in on both the CDA and the FAFSA. And then you'll be able to see Cal State Fullerton, CSU Fullerton listed on there as your school of attendance. After you've provided the school of attendance, you'll then be asked to indicate what your housing plan will be like next year for 2023, 2024. You're going to have three options. The first is on campus, meaning you're going to be living as in a residence hall at the school, at the university. The next is with parents, meaning that you're going to be living with your parents or with your relatives and commuting to campus. And lastly, off campus. This is an option for students who are not living with family and who are not living on campus. This is perhaps living in a university or in an apartment outside of the university, perhaps by yourself, perhaps with some friends, but not living with your family. So once again, our federal school code is 001137. Be sure to type that in so that CSUF can appear and be selected as a school of attendance. And after you've provided your demographic information, your school selection information, the next section is the dependency status section. And we want students to know that if you are under the age of 24, you will be considered a dependent student and you must report your parent demographic and financial information unless you can answer yes to any of the questions in the dependency section. But students are automatically considered to be independent once they reach the age of 24. So some of the examples of dependency status questions will include, are you married? Are you pursuing a master's or doctorate degree? Are you an active duty or military veteran? And so on and so forth. So please read those questions carefully and answer them as best as you can because we do at times have to verify this information with you, which means that we would have to potentially request some additional documentation to verify that you are meeting those criteria. And after answering all of those questions, if it is determined that you are a dependent student, you will be asked to provide parent demographic and parent financial information. And the very first thing you'll be asked to do is to answer a question that asks, what is your parent's marital status as of today? So as of the day that you are submitting your DREAM Act, that you're submitting your FAFSA application, you will be asked to provide what your parent's marital status is. So your options will include things like, are they married or remarried? Have they never been married, divorced or separated, widowed, and so forth. So please answer them as truthfully as you can. And if your parents are married, you're going to have to include the information for both parents, both demographic and financial information for both parents if they are married. If your parents have separated or divorced and they are not remarried, they are still on their own, they're single, you will have to include who's the parent demographic and financial information provides you the greatest amount of financial support. So this means that you're going to provide the financial and demographic information for the parent that provides 51% of your financial support. Now, if your parents have separated or divorced but have since remarried, you're going to provide the parent who provides the greatest amount of support for you, as well as the step parent that they have now married. So if you're unsure, you will see hints, as you can see on our screen here, that will better guide you as to which parent you should be providing on both applications. So please read this carefully and remember that you do have to provide parent information if you are a dependent student. And now we do understand that some students might have extenuating circumstances that prevent them from potentially providing parent information, but this is a requirement. And if you do have any questions, you're welcome to contact us, to contact the California DREAM Act folks over at CSAC, the California Student Aid Commission, or even our FAFSA folks through the U.S. Department of Education to ask them some questions regarding this. And once you have done all that, you provided all of your student information, the parent information, tax information, and so forth. You'll then get to the signing and submitting portion of the application. So as students, you're able to sign the applications electronically. So if you're a FAFSA applicant, you can sign the form electronically as you see here. And if you're a DREAM Act applicant, you can do the same. You can sign electronically and submit the application. But keep in mind that parents do have to sign the application if you are a dependent student. So it is a requirement for your application to be finalized, to have a parent signature if you are a dependent student. So for those of you who perhaps come from mixed status families and your parents don't have a social security number and they are unable to create an FSA ID, that's okay. You can still have one of your parents sign. Just make sure that they print out the signature page and they mail it to FAFSA, to Federal Student Aid directly. And you'll find that address that you'll have to mail it to on the signature page for parents. And the same goes for our CDA applicants. You can have your parents sign electronically, but if for whatever reason they are unable to, they too can print out a signature page and send it straight to the California Student Aid Commission. And before you go, I want to review some information with you all that will help remind you of really important info as you're going through this application process each year that you're doing this. So first of all, when is the priority deadline for both the California Dream Act and the FAFSA applicants? If for this 2023-2024 application year, it's going to be March 2nd of 2023. So please keep that in mind. If there's anything I want you all to remember, it's that March 2nd is your priority deadline for both the California Dream Act and the FAFSA application. Next is, should students submit both the CDA and the FAFSA application? And while we do cover both applications on this workshop, we want you to know that no, you should only submit the application that you are specifically eligible to submit. So don't submit both, only the application that you should be submitting, either the FAFSA or the DREAM Act. And lastly, what tax information will be used for the 2023-2024 CDA and FAFSA? And once again, that is a 2021 federal tax return information. So that's Form 1040. And we want to remind you to keep applying each and every year that you're a student here at CSUF. Even though you're applying for this 2023-2024 year, you're applying to be awarded for that year, we want you to know that you have to apply each year until you graduate. So the application will always open up on October 1st, and you'll always have a March 2nd priority deadline. So for this 2023-2024, once again, it's March 2nd, 2023. That will be your priority deadline. You then want to routinely review and visit your student center, your student homepage, and visit your to-do list, your tasks in the spring to make sure that if you are being asked to submit some documentation, that you do so and that you submit it to our office by the priority deadline, which will be in April of 2023. Tends to be in the end of April. We will be announcing that deadline as we get closer to the spring semester. And lastly, once you have submitted your application each year, you submit any documents that have been requested. You can review your awards and accept money for the upcoming year in the summer. So please go ahead and review your awards each year during the summer terms. And we want to list a few pieces of important resources on here. First, we have the Federal Student Aid website, as well as the FAFSA website, which is studentaid.gov. This is where you can go and get information on loans, grants, as well as the FAFSA application on studentaid.gov. Next is the California Student Aid Commission. This is the state organization that awards the Cal Grant, the Middle Class Scholarship, as well as administers the California Dream Act application, and that's csac.ca.gov. And for the Dream Act, you can find this application on dream.csac.ca.gov. And we also want to take a moment to include our contact information. If you have any additional questions after this workshop, you're more than welcome to contact us via phone, in person, or send us a question online. When you visit our contact us page on our website, you can actually type up your questions for us and have them answered by one of our staff members. So we encourage you to do so. And if you need to meet with one of our staff members for a more in-depth conversation regarding your specific financial aid application, eligibility, information, and so forth, you can contact us via Zoom. You can contact us via phone, and we would be happy to have a counseling appointment with you in either of those formats. Or if you'd like to come in person, you can do so as well. And lastly, we encourage you to follow us on Instagram. It's a great place for us to post a really important and beneficial information for all of our students. And we will be posting a lot of workshop information, deadline information, and just information that I think all of our students can benefit from. By following us on Instagram, you'll be up to date on everything with us. And that is it for our presentation. We want to thank you very much for being here today. But before you go, we would greatly appreciate you taking a minute to fill out a very quick survey for us. If you scan the QR code that you see here with your phone's camera app, you'll be able to be taken straight to a very quick multiple choice survey that will better educate us on what you thought of this workshop. We would love to know how we can improve this workshop for future students and what you thought, how much you learned, and so forth. So thank you very much for taking the time to complete this survey for us. We would greatly appreciate your thoughts and your feedback. And we want to thank you again for being here, for assisting this workshop. And we want you to know that once again, we are here to serve you as Titans. We are here in the Office of Financial Aid to support you to graduation, and throughout this entire journey, you can count on us to be your partners and to be your support system here at CSUF. So thank you very much for being here. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and remember that Titans reach higher. Thank you.